Hi there. My name is Max Young. I'm a principal with Capital BPM. We are a premier Commander partner, and I'm here today with Sandy Kemsley, who has been kind enough to make a few minutes to talk to us about one of my favorite topics, which is the zombie of one of my favorite conferences. So, Sandy, would you please take a minute and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Sandy Kemsley. I'm an independent analyst and also work as a technology strategist. So I work on kind of both sides of things. I work with vendors to help them with thought leadership and internal product direction and so on, and also with end customers, helping them with technical strategy and whatever they might need if they're doing an implementation of a BPM or related technology to BPM. And I also blog, which is kind of how we all know each other, I think, is I blog on column2.com.
Yeah. So, just to be clear, Sandy, I think, in my opinion, is one of the top 10 people in the world with expertise and knowledge and sort of the Yoda skills around BPM. And, she says we know each other because of her blogging, but really it's because I'm a fan and I follow her. So, just wanted to get that out there. So, Sandy, the context of this conversation is one of the things that I've always really loved was when Nathaniel Palmer had, he and I think Bruce Silver were kind of
Mm-hmm.
the BPM Next conference.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who don't know, BPM Next was this very unique unconference conference where you would sort of get like the CEO of Commanda and the CTO of Flowable and, the founders of Bonitasoft and, guys from IBM and Oracle and Fujitsu and all these people would come in like really big heavy hitters. And we would have like these amazing, deep conversations about the flows and the ebbs of the trends and what people were interested in and why. And it would be very challenging. And, there were probably some customers there, but not a lot. It wasn't like a solicitation conference as I recall it.
Mm-hmm.
Much
Mm-hmm.
more almost like a thesis dissertation from, graduate school.
Yes, yeah, it was almost like an academic. I go to the academic research conference in at the BPM programs at universities, and it had a little bit more of that feel about it, where it wasn't about selling something. It was about industry insiders, people who were experts in this. They just wanted to explore what was coming next in BPM.
Yeah, yeah. And, I think that from my perspective, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this for about 20 years. So normally when I walk into a room and we're talking about BPM, I kind of feel like, I'm one of the thought leaders in the room. And then when I would walk into BPM Next, I kind of felt very junior. I was like, oh my God, who's here? Look what it is that they're saying and the depth and the ideas that are behind it. What was your experience like?
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny because you and I met up recently. We were at a conference together last month, and one of us mentioned BPM Next, and we both sort of looked off and sighed and said, "Oh, yes, I miss BPM Next." And it was about the people that attended, of course, because it was like, as you say, a lot of these heavy hitters, people who really understood the technology and understood the impact of the technology in business. But also, it was about this very collaborative and collegial kind of environment that it was, is because there weren't customers there, except the odd time there'd be like a couple of customers who, like, I don't know, maybe read about it on my blog and said, oh, we
Right.
should go to that. And then they'd go there and they'd read, people would just mostly ignore them, right? So it was, which is not how customers are normally treated at a conference. But you have to consider that BPM Next got its roots real, like it got its start really with something back before that. So I went back through some of the history when you and I said we'd talk about this today, is I went back to, okay, I started blogging about BPM in 2005, if you can believe it or not. And, it was like business process management, related technologies. Blogging was a great way to share ideas, gave me a platform to talk about things like that. And soon there was this whole community of BPM bloggers. There's analysts like myself, there were software vendors and consultants, and even some end customers who were doing some interesting projects. They were all blogging about this. And then a couple of years later, in 2007, Twitter came along, and that gave us a way to sort of amplify messages and also have little short conversations. So now you could just have like little interactive chats back and forth with people. That was a little bit more dynamic than just doing blogging. So we started to really sort of form this community this online community. And by then I was also attending a lot of BPM conferences. So as an analyst, I wanted to go out and kind of see what was happening. And sometimes I'd be invited as a speaker. So I might be there giving a presentation. And there was this one called BPM Think Tank. So I went to BPM Think Tank 2006 through 2008. And it was organized as part of an OMG standards meeting. So what was happening at the OMG standards at that time is the BPMN standards were being developed and refined. So the standard we think of as just having always been there was at one point, being developed by smart people, like the kind of people who ended up at bpmNEXT. But there was this group that got together called BPM Think Tank. And this was the first time I'd ever seen sort of roundtables of BPM software vendors sit down together and talk about the future of BPM technology in this very, as I said, collegial way. Like they weren't letting the fact that they were competitors get in the way. So then I also met a lot of people who I had already met online, but now face to face for the first time. And that included Bruce Silver and Nathaniel Palmer, who then went on to start the bpmNEXT conference in 2013. So I think that they were both involved in the standards, very heavily in the standards. And I think they saw that kind of atmosphere that could come out of this and, wanted to do something that had that same kind of feel. So the idea that they ran with bpmNEXT was to have people in the industry, like you say, these heavy hitters, mostly vendors, few analysts like myself, and just talk about what were these next best things that were coming in BPM. And so we saw all of these fabulous new ideas. They'd be right off the developers' workstations. They would be things that weren't even released yet. And then we have all these great discussions.
The way that I would love to do it is kind of this, like, I don't think there's anything that needs to change about the format or the content or the duration. I think keeping it like, 1, 2, 3 days is really key. I think it helps people like be able to do their normal job and still be able to do this. I can't really think of anything that I would change in a 2.0 version, except obviously some of the content would be updated. And there's like a whole new world to talk about with like microservices, because that was just beginning to ebb and flow at that time.
And all of the impacts of AI on BPM, and there's so much that's changing. Actually, microservices, if you remember when I did the keynote, I think in 2019, I did a keynote there, and I was talking about a microservice model for platforming, for building a BPM platform. So it was kind of relatively new then. Yeah.
That was you though. You were kind of the head of the curve. With the rest of us didn't catch up for a while. Sandy, thank you very much for making the time. This was a really fun conversation.
Yeah, it was great. And I really hope we can do something exciting with some next generation of bpmNEXT or something in the same spirit.
So you're gonna be sorry you said that, because I'm gonna start adding you to group conversations, and hopefully we can help build it back up for next year.
Excellent. I look forward to it.
Sandy, thank you again very much. It really is a pleasure to talk to you. I love this. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.